And we got to get back into something that got socials a little bit jumping yesterday, Broder. It was, bro, what did you do?
No, I dig it. Like, it's so weird being in this position, kind of explaining, like, why. I'm not for a Skubal trade, but why a trade might be considered, why it might be the right move, why it might be reasonable. But that all this swarm, this wave of Tigers faithful, they are Tigers faithful, are coming to his defense. Like, I don't necessarily agree with all of the reasons or lack of justification why they're against considering, but the fact that they're coming to the defense of their star pitcher, I dig that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm all for it. That shows that he means something a little more than just his play on the field. But because he's so good, this has to be talked about and considered due to everything coming together at this very point in time. Both him, his future contract, and the teams competing for a World Series this year. It has to be thought about.
You're trying to be objective. And you have to be in this line of work, or else I think it's disingenuous to the people that we are serving. We can definitely tell what our biases are, but ultimately you got to talk about the options that are also on the table as well, which we do, I think, pretty well throughout all of the sports teams that we cover. Yep. And you have to do it with Tarik Skubal, especially when you consider the fact that this is one of the first prospects we've had in a very long time that can really get you a king's ransom.
100%. And before we move on to the Red Sox and the Dodgers haul, I wanted to just touch quickly on the Orioles one as well. Because
JB, can you put that back up if you could?
Yeah, I got you. Because this is something that I don't know if I explained well enough yesterday. I obviously mentioned how having Jackson Holliday, Samuel Basallo, and Kobe Mayo would give you 5 of the top 15 MLB top 100 prospects if you also include Max Clark and Jackson Jobe, which you would. However, what I also think is important to impress upon is Jackson Holliday and Kobe Mayo. Maybe the day after they were hypothetically traded to the Tigers, they would start the next day. These are MLB-ready players. Jackson Holliday, we obviously saw at the beginning of the season, he struggled a bit. But in AAA, his on-base percentage is like .440. That's absolutely ridiculous. And a Kobe Mayo, he's a guy who's about 22 years old, has paid his dues in the minors, is raking in AAA. So with this type of a trade, you might see your dividends right away. And oh, by the way, one more thing that I want to impress upon, I haven't even got to Chase McDermott, which is like pitching prospect replenishment with the Tigers, is that this is the type of move that I don't know if the Orioles would even do. This is the type of move that if you are Scott Harris, you say, this is what I want. And then if they don't give it to you, you can tell, them to kindly piss off. And then you could say, oh, okay, I guess you don't want to win a World Series then. Because Corbin Burns, by the way, the reason you know the Orioles are going all in is because Corbin Burns is a UFA this offseason. So you might only have one chance to get Corbin Burns and Tarik Skubal on the same team, but you got to give me this. This is what I want to impress upon. The last person that wants to trade Tarik Skubal is me, because I think the Tigers are farther along than most. But this haul is something that the Nationals didn't even get back for Juan Soto. This is something that the Baltimore Orioles might even hang up on you for. So if they're willing to do this, it's pick. In a scenario trading Tarik Skubal, this is how good of a haul we're talking about.
And Flannel, that's the exact scenario that the Tigers want to be in.
Yeah.
You've got the leverage. Any trade that you're considering, and hypothetically, should you make a trade, it needs to hurt the other team.
Yeah.
Like, that's when you know it's good, where the Orioles don't want to do this, but they end up giving it at the end because they want to go for a World Series, because there are some other teams chasing them that I'm going to get to here in a second. All of that combined, like Scott Harris, just as the Orioles, when they hang up the phone after making this trade, they need to be, shoot, did we do the right thing? Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know about that one. On the other end, Scott Harris and everybody in that front office, when they put the phone down, since trading Tarik Skubal puts everyone's job on the line, you need to hang up the phone and everyone's like, yeah, I'm glad we did that. I'm willing to go down with that ship. Yep. And that's the type of ship that you're willing to go down with. And if the Orioles say, no, hey, we don't want to do this, like Flannel said, you hang up the phone, say slightly, tell them to piss off, and you go, all right, let me go call the third place team in your division, the team that's coming for you, the Red Sox.
Yep.
JB, if you could throw up that graphic, because the Red Sox,
that's the one I'm interested in.
They don't have the Major League ready talent right now in their farm system, but they have some dudes. They have packages that they can get very, very intriguing. And to the Red Sox, who are what are they, 2.5, 3 games behind both the Orioles and the Yankees?
They're coming, yeah.
They're coming. They're playing hot. Best thing that can happen for the Tigers is the Red Sox come out of this break and win 6, 7, 8 of their next 10 games. But you offer them, hey, you got 2.5 years of team control. You might be able to compete for a World Series this year, chase the Orioles and Yankees, or be the favorites next year, or at the very least, you're keeping Tarik Skubal away from the Orioles for, at minimum, the next 2.5 years. You would think the Orioles are looking to sign him long term. So you're keeping Tarik Skubal out of your division and putting him on your team if you sign him. Right here, we got Marcelo Mayer, Marcelo Mayer, Roman Anthony, Kyle Teal, Richard Fritz, and Vladimir Asensio. I added a fifth. We got the number 1, 2, and 3 prospects in their system, plus the top pitching prospect and a more long-term outfield prospect. But again, these guys, Flannel, and I know you're more familiar with them, they're not going to come in immediately and start, whether this year, maybe even not the beginning of next year. This is more of a time capsule.
I could see Marcelo Mayers being the starting shortstop for the Detroit Tigers in 2025.
Yeah.
The thing about this deal that isn't quite as appealing as the Orioles one is there's only one Jackson Holliday, and Marcelo Mayer, he's a damn good shortstop prospect, but he's not Jackson Holliday, and they don't have the MLB ready guys right now. All 3 of those top 3 prospects in their system are currently in AA. But again, this is the type of haul that if you're trading Tarik Skubal, this is what you want to get. Marcelo Mayer, Roman Anthony, and Kyle Teal are all top 25 MLB prospects. And if you're the Boston Red Sox, when you're looking at what they've done this season, a lot of guys that most of us had never heard of, guys that maybe the Red Sox were higher on but weren't the big names like the Rafael Devers, they have stepped up huge this year. Like a guy like David Hamilton, he's been the starting shortstop for the Red Sox most of the season. He's played absolutely phenomenally, at least based off of what you expected from him. Maybe they don't need a Marcelo Mayer as much. With Roman Anthony, you've got Jarren Duran. You've got, what's that guy's name? Looking for him. Oh, yeah, Wilyer Abreu. Guys like that who have stepped up absolutely huge for them. Maybe you don't need a Roman Anthony. And, of course, you've got Connor Wong as your starting catcher. Maybe the Red Sox feel like these guys are maybe a little more expendable than you think. And Tarik Skubal, this might be the type of move where if they get him, they would pass the Orioles and the Yankees and maybe win the AL East. And with the team control, they'd have Tarik Skubal for a couple more seasons. But again, I want to impress this on everybody. If you call the Red Sox, if you're Scott Harris, this is what you ask for. If they're not willing to give it to you, tell them to piss off, and we get our ace back.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's really not that complicated.
I think it's appropriate. It shows that there's an absolute value on who you believe Tarik Skubal to be for your organization. So if this is a guy that you're going to even consider trading, it has to be for something that people say, hey, that's outlandish.
Yes.
Okay, then.
Yes.
That's just the way that this thing goes.
If, like I said, the Red Sox might not do it. The Red Sox might not do this trade. They might be like, okay, you can have Mayer and Teal, but you can't have Roman Anthony. It's like, all right then,
cool,
bye.
That's why this is so polarizing, especially on social media, because you put something out like this, and you're getting a swarm of people saying this is unrealistic. Why would they ever do it? But that's why you offer it, because you need to ask for a king's ransom. And Matthew Kruger, I'm going to pick on you, not because I disagree with this, but I think a lot of people share this same sentiment. He says, keep Skubal, Mize, and Flaherty. Quit being ridiculous. Like, get real. All right, so if you do keep Skubal, let's talk about what the next steps have to be. Like, if you're keeping Skubal, you're banking on them both committing to him long term, and you have confidence that your ownership is willing to go out this winter immediately, not wait a couple like this winter and go spend and get bats. And if I'm not mistaken, like 95% of the Tigers fan base or people calling in and writing in have been pissed that why didn't they go get Matt Chapman and JD Martinez?
Right.
Like, they're just 2 bats away. Like, you're not going out and trying to get, no offense to Mark Canha and Gio Urshela. If you're keeping Skubal, you have to go get 2 top MLB, not all-star bats, but like $15 to $25 million, like real bats.
Consistent.
For, 1, 2, 3 year contracts. So in the next 2 years, you're competing with Tarik Skubal, because you know what? Scott Boras, he's taking Tarik Skubal to free agency. So at the end of 2 years, you're walking away from Jackson Holliday in this package. You're spending minimum 8 years, $400 million. $400 million right now.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Right now, Justin Verlander, Max Scherzer. Verlander's 41, Scherzer's 39. They're the highest paid pitchers per year in the bigs. They make $43.3 million.
Well, and that's the thing. If you're willing to do that, if the Tigers are willing to give Tarik Skubal a long-term contract right now, then all of this talk can be null and void. And I want to respond to something that Ed O'Neill said in the chat. Would this be like trading Sewell or Hutch? No. I actually think not even close, because Sewell and Hutch are cornerstone pieces on a team that we think can win the Super Bowl this year. They are cornerstone pieces who play every single game, who play some of the most important positions on the field. With Tarik Skubal, if you could get a pitching staff full of 5 Tarik Skubals, you win the World Series, obviously. But they only affect a game 1 out of every 5 days. You can be Tarik Skubal and be the Cy Young winner. He is the Cy Young favorite right now, and the Tigers are under 500. The point of potentially trading him is what you could get back in return for him, and whether or not Scott Harris and Chris Ilitch feel like he is worth the long-term investment, given the fact that you don't have enough around him right now, and we don't know if they're ever going to get enough around him. So no, trading Tarik Skubal is much lesser than trading Hutch or Sewell.
I like how he phrased that, though. Would you consider this more like if the Chargers were offered a trade for Justin Herbert, and in return they received Will Johnson, Mason Graham, Will Campbell out of LSU, Michael Williams, and then insert your preference of quarterback, Carson Beck, Quinn Ewers, Shedeur Sanders. Like, you're getting some of the top prospects in the NFL draft in 2025, plus a quarterback for Justin Herbert.
Once you added the plus a quarterback prospect, that would be pretty similar.
Gotcha.
Just because, Justin Herbert, they could have all the talent in the world, but if Easton Stick is your quarterback, you're still going to blow. But the purpose of that would be if you got like a Carson Beck or a Shedeur Sanders or Quinn Ewers. Yeah, I actually think that's a pretty apropos comparison.
But if you're going to pay Tarik Skubal, it has to be, like you said, Broder, with the playoffs in mind. You can't wait. You got to kind of push that button and make sure that you're putting a team out there where you can take advantage of the full value of Tarik Skubal, because even though during a regular season you're going to get him 1 out of every 5 games, the value there is that I know he's going to win. So we're going to get Kenta Maeda if he's a starter, maybe 1 every 5 games, but I can't pencil that in as a dub.
Yeah.
With Skubal during the regular season, I know we can pencil that in as a dub. And then when you get to the playoffs, what made the Tigers so dangerous back in the day was the fact that, you know what? You're probably getting Verlander once every 3 days if you have to now. And so if you're going to sign him, I'm hoping it's with the mindset that you're going to go out there and push for the playoffs right now to maximize paying him a boatload of cash.
Yeah, and we got people like Matt Kruger in the chat saying, the talk about prospects is cool, but we have a guy in our system named Spencer Torkelson that it didn't work with. And with a deal like this, you get more cracks at the apple, and you're taking chances on everyday players instead of a pitcher that pitches once every 5 days. And when you have so many holes in your infield, you need as many cracks at the apple as possible. Yes, you're not going to hit on every prospect, but the goal is to have enough of a farm system to where you can field your team, man. So I get it, but you're not going to hit on everybody. It's
and for that very reason, the Tigers right now are relying on their prospects, their farm system, their Spencer Torkelsons as the timeline for contention. This is a way to just inject the strongest steroids ever into that system. With the Orioles, it would be to transform AAA and your major league roster. With the others, it's transforming from top to bottom of your system. But it's either to contend before the end of Tarik Skubal's contract with the Tigers, you have to go buy hitters. You have to spend real money.
Yeah.
Do you have confidence they're going to do that and re-sign him for $400 million?
Nah.
But that's the combination that would have to happen.
Yeah.
Jeez. And that's why you got to talk about it.
That's why you have to talk about it. And I know that this conversation is going to be framed as like, oh my God, Broder and Flannel and KG and Kool-Aid want to trade Skubal. How dare they? I know, but that's what people are going to say. And the reason I know that is because I see Herb Nash in the chat, who has never listened to a single word that I said, just hears what he wants to hear. So Skubal isn't a corner piece. He absolutely is. But right now, what Tarik Skubal is I'm trying to think of the perfect analogy. What do you think their record is, the Tigers, when Tarik Skubal doesn't start? And I get it, he's their ace. It's always worse with other teams when their ace isn't pitching. But when Tarik Skubal doesn't start, the Tigers are basically the Los Angeles Angels. No matter what you think of what they've done lately, and that 8-2 run to end the first half was a phenomenal. We all enjoyed it. We all loved it. But without Tarik Skubal, he's not necessarily, he is a cornerstone piece, but he's not like Sewell or Hutch. He's basically what Tarik Skubal is he's a Ferrari and a lot full of Toyota Camrys. And I understand that not everybody is a Toyota Camry. Riley Green obviously is not, but he is the best thing you have on a team that probably still won't make the playoffs, no matter what we think about them.
And that's the caveat, is that you contrasted it with the Lions' window right now.
Yes.
They're winning.
Yes.
They're Super Bowl contenders. Whereas with Tarik Skubal, he's a piece that, honestly, if you get the right haul, can bring you closer to playoff contention and long-term success.
But if you don't get that haul, you hang up and you kindly and gladly keep Tarik Skubal.
Exactly.
But it has to be an absolute king's ransom.
Yeah, and nobody wants to trade Skubal. But if they did make a deal like this, then maybe that's less money than your owner has to spend as well. We all know Chris Illich, he's real tight with the pocketbook. But if you can get a haul like this that will jumpstart your team starting next season, you got a whole bunch of MLB ready talents to come up. That's less money they have to spend in the offseason to make an impact. So I'm just saying.
I wish Woodward Sports had the confidence to support the Tigers the way they do the Wings Pistons line. Come on, dude.
My God.
Come on, Kruger. Get that shit out of here. Get that out of here.
We're doing fan content. We're doing all this.
I'm trying to tell you the ways. Here are the outlets for the Tigers to actually be good. Yeah. Because
faster.
Keeping Skubal and operating like they are now, yes, it's 4 years till we should even be talking like legit contenders. We're waiting for Max Clark to get to the bigs. 2, 3, 4 years. If you're cool with waiting, doesn't seem like anyone's freaking patient. You bring up the P word and everyone freaks out.
Exactly.
So bringing school back means getting patient. It means getting patient.
Right.
A historic trade speeds up this rebuild.
Exactly.
I don't think people realize how close we are to the start of the rebuild versus the end. We're way closer to the start than the end. This speeds it up, especially that Orioles trade.
People should compare this to like the Matt Stafford deal. Like, you see how the Matt Stafford deal jump-started this Lions offense this Lions team into what they are now?
Even though it was a gut punch. Even though as fans, it was a gut punch.
Yeah.
We know how we felt when that trade went down.
It could be similar, though.
That's interesting because at least on a systemic level, and I know the Lions had a lot of talented players during Matthew Stafford's tenure. I'm not going to call Stafford a Ferrari, but he was another one. During his tenure with the Lions, he was, over the course of those 12 years, either the best or damn near the best thing that you had, but this organization was just full of rot. He was like, we all know that. We all know until Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell got here that that's what it was. So it's kind of the same thing where Matthew Stafford, he wasn't going to be the solution to cure the ails of this team. I'm not saying it was his fault. It's just what they were able to get for him. Look what it's turned out to be.
Yeah, but that's perfect. It wasn't his fault. For them to be successful with Stafford before he got too old or ended the prime of his career, that front office, which nobody trusted, was going to have to go out and completely reshape this to speed it up to match the timeline with Stafford's contract, his age, everything. It's a really interesting comparison to make. Obviously not perfect, but how it jump starts and kind of reshapes your organizational strategy.